Okay, hello everybody. Nice to see quite many participants in our webinar. We have organized several webinars before, but this webinar has the most number of participants. At the moment we are more than 20, including the speakers. My name is Gytis Cibulskis. I will be the moderator for this seminar, and we are organizing this seminar in the framework of Erasmus Plus program project, Video Systems in Education. So in invitation and in agenda, you also see the links to our website. I will not go through the introduction of the project and will not take time for that. You are all invited to visit our project website, join our Visa community on Google+, and also follow the project results. We are developing several guidebooks on how to use video in education, including flipped classroom, video conferencing, a global classroom. So this webinar is dedicated to gamification, and we have some invited speakers here. We will have a few presentations, bigger presentations, and then we will have some smaller shorter presentations from our project partners and also from some external presenters from business world. So first speaker in our webinar is Anne Isholt, representing one of our partner institutions from Denmark. So Anne, floor is yours. I will share your presentation now, and please introduce yourself and go on with your presentation.
Thank you very much. So my name is Anne, and I work currently as a pedagogical IT consultant. And at our organization, we also like to focus on what impact games can have on our learning. I'm going to talk a little bit about why it works so well with games in learning, and also that there are 4 different ways to approach this. At least that's how I see it. So when we talk about games in learning, it's good to have a starting point when you try to define what a game really is, to understand what makes it a great tool for learning. So what I like to do is to divide it, or at least to compare it to what is going on when you have free play compared to what is inside a game. When you play, the rules are negotiable. You make them up as you go along, and there might not be a goal at all, or at least it's unclear. The focus will be on the process, meaning that, well, it's good to play as long as you play and suddenly it's over. You improvise as you go along. So that's what the characteristics of play is. On the opposite hand, when you have a game, you have a fixed set of rules. You have clear goals. You will always know what is expected of you. And most of these goals will also be divided into sub-goals. So the focus is on the result, but not only. Of course, it's clearly tied to the process also, but you will always have the result in the perspective somehow. And the missions or the different goals in the game will form a path, so you can't just improvise. You can't make up a new goal as you go along, for example. And if I should define what a good learning game is, I'd say it's a combination of storyline and rule system. There are games that are based purely on rules, like Tetris here, for example. It's a very abstract game, and it doesn't have a story. You just combine these blocks and you get points. Now this is fine because it's engaging still, but if you want to have learning and something that you can transfer afterwards, you need to have a context for these rules. and that's where the storyline is good, because the storyline will stimulate the imagination and create immersion and drive. So this mix is very appealing, and when it comes to learning, because when we try to understand ourselves as humans, we use narratives, and when we try to learn something, we do it through imitations and experimentation. So this is very similar to what is going on in games. So in the narrative, we can recognize ourselves, and throughout history, mankind has used stories like myth, parables, fables to pass on knowledge about human life. So good stories are often built upon conflict or dilemma, and that's the same case with games. Games have problems, dilemmas, and conflicts, and you need to solve them. So that's very lifelike. And in real life, we also use trial and error. In many situations, we will try to go this way or the other way. We'll try to use one tool or the other until we find a solution. This is the same in many games. Certain games also let the player simulate a role or an event and allow the player to improve their performance by observing others in the game. So that's at least some good explanations for what is appealing about games. But there are a lot of other areas where I think games excel in doing this. So one of the things is that it's learning by doing. It's experience-based. It's something that you do, and it's almost like a real experience in real life. So you get your hands dirty, so to say. You try out different things. So it's opposite to just reading about something in theory. You try it out. But games also create immersion and ownership. Often you will play a role and you become that person or a part of that universe or that special context, and that makes the player more engaged, because you take on a part, and your actions will have an actual impact on the result of this game, compared to if you're not dealing with interactive material, you will just feel more distant from that learning. So games are also multimodal. That means you have a lot of senses you can use. You have sound, you have text, you have visuals, and spatial and other modalities that will help you, to guide you and to make you understand in multiple ways. So, as I said before, games are problem-based. There's something you need to solve, so this will encourage analytic and creative thinking. So it's full of choices to make and challenges to solve. And as humans, we're drawn to problem solving. It is nutrition for our brain. Games can also show the relation between complex events, such as the plague. How did it spread? How did so many people get involved? It could also be war in social studies, to understand the mechanisms that will drive that whole mechanism. It could also go the opposite direction and show the micro level of war. How is it felt for an individual person in medieval times that you have wartime and your parents are dead, for example, and you need to survive on your own and so on. So they can both show the micro level, and they can zoom out and show how many events are tightly close together. But games are sandboxes, and this is very important, because it's a safe place to experiment, it's a safe place to fail. And if we really want to learn something, we need to be able to fail. This is often hard in other areas of learning. We have a lot of students that will be terrified to say something in class because they're afraid that it's wrong. But in games, it's all about trying and failing and trying again. So this is a place where it doesn't matter. It's all good, because it's supposed to be like that. You try and you fail, and you do it again until you may have success. Actually, as as Rasmus, my colleague who will speak later, we talked about the other day, it's up to 80% of the time that a player is failing when they're playing a computer game. And still they keep on playing because it's interesting, and there's no shame in failing. Games can also provide scenario competence. That means that you learn a lot from analyze a situation and make strategies of how to deal with that exact situation. So you can transfer that strategy to another situation in real life. Now, in games, you have this good balance between challenge and skill. I mean, you will never encounter something that you can't, problems that are bigger than you can solve. It will always be in a level that you can handle because they're divided into levels. And also, you might, in the beginning of a game, set the level to I'm novice or I'm a hardcore player, so you can differentiate it as you want to. And when you're in flow, you're very, very focused, and you are just concentrating on the problem at hand, the things you need to solve, and you can totally forget about time and place. So that's why players end up sitting for 8 hours and have really sore hands and sore backs. So studies of game-based learning show that actually you can increase motivation a lot. And this is the motivation to seek further knowledge about a subject, which is very important. So you will really spark an interest for this topic. But also the transferring of knowledge is greater, and the way they remember it afterwards. That's because it's stored in another part of our brain. It's like an actual experience, so we tend to remember it much longer. Now, this might be explained by this cone of learning from Edgar Dale. So in the top, we have reading. It says that if we're only reading something, the less involved we are, the less interactive we are, we don't remember it very well. And when you go to the bottom of the pyramid, you'll see that if you're doing the real thing, you'll remember most of it. So games would be on second place here, because that would be like simulating the real thing, the real experience. So we're really active here. We are both participating and doing and thinking and making hypotheses and all kinds of things. Now that would also explain that if you, for example, have a simulation of an operation, which is a good way to practice instead of practicing on a live human being if you're not certain yet, you will tend to remember it more accurate than if you just read about this operation. Of course, you need some theory to back it up, but to experiment on a scenario like this will make you remember the things and also what went wrong and what went well and so on. Now, if we think about what way to work with games in learning will be right for you, I'll try to divide it into 4 ways, to 4 approaches. I'm going in the wrong direction. One thing is to learn about games. In this way, you will teach or you will treat the game as a novel, for example, and you will analyze it and look at the genres, the characters in the game, and look at it the way you analyze a book, for example. But you can also learn through games. So you can use, for example, a serious game, a learning game, or you can use any commercial game and then build something around it, a context for learning. So, of course, here it's important that you both have a briefing and a debriefing, that you create something around the game. It can never stand on its own. You need to have a guide or someone to tell you if you make the wrong hypothesis about something, that they can correct you and steer you in the right direction. Then that's the way to learn through game design. So when the teachers let the students design games, it's actually a high level of learning, because you have to get a conceptual understanding of the topic that you're learning about. You have to really dig deep into the core of the topic to know what should I show others in this game, so they will learn about the environment, for example. So you really need to know your topic well to be able to teach others through the game design. When you make game design, you also become a learning designer. So it also gives the students a lot of knowledge about the didactics of the topic and their own learning path in this. And then in the end, we have the gamified learning. So here we'll take the elements from games, and it could, for example, increase motivation by dividing stuff into sub-goals to show the progress, to give feedback, have mechanisms that show feedback. It could also be competition elements. It could be loaded with a lot of social meaning and meaningful awards, not just points for the sake of points, but something that makes sense. It could be the embedding of choices and making of scenarios, for example, cooperation, and so on. So it could be concrete learning material, but it could also be a teaching situation where you would get points for making certain actions. So this is how I see it, that you can look at these 4 approaches and see what might be right for my students and what is it I want to teach them. And also, of course, if you want to teach through games, you will have to know a little bit more about them yourself. You can't just throw out a game without having played it before. The same thing goes about when you learn about games to analyze them. You will need to know that game in depth, because it's the same thing if you're teaching mother tongue and you give them a novel or a text and you haven't read it before. It will make a strange learning situation, I'd say. So I hope you enjoyed my little presentation, and I'll ask Gittis if he has a few questions now, or we can gather them later.
Yes, I see Fleming is typing. We don't have questions from the audience yet, but I'd like to give one question which bothers me personally. Your presentation is very convincing. The gaming in learning situations results in better understanding, in better learning. How to motivate teachers to do that, and who should be responsible for organizing all this motivational system, encouragement of the teachers to include games into their teaching and learning courses?
Well, it's a big step, because if you're not a player or a gamer yourself, it will be hard to convince you to step out in this area, because it seems overwhelming for some people. So I'd say I would begin to show a couple of these small free games you can find online, where you sort of, for example, a political game or that makes a statement, and you might only play it for 5 minutes or something like that, but it will underline or make clear some point you want to give your students. So if I should, help a group of teachers to get started, I would gather them for a workshop of a couple of hours, and I'd say, okay, I'm going to find 5 of these small games that are eatable and it takes no skill to master. And that's a way to begin to understand how powerful it is. Just have 5 minutes in the classroom, and then you're ready to move on to some other subject, for example. And then for those who get hooked, I would, build it up, because I've been playing games for 30 years, and I can't expect them to be as easily, convinced that this is the best way to do it. And then I'd say, we can't play for 200 hours during school time. So you might want to pick out a few examples from games, from big games, and say, okay, let's play for an hour and see where is the learning. potential in this game for 1 hour's play. That's like a frame that we can work within. And then maybe for bigger projects, you can work in your at home and play the game for a longer time.
May I jump in?
Does that answer your question?
Yes, indeed. Thanks a lot.
Or,
Thomas, would you like to add something? Or
Yes, I think another really crucial question when it comes to bringing games to learning settings is that you need to be able to present material to properly embed games into the setting. So it is not only about devices, it is also similar to working with movies or books. Rather, it is really helpful if you have a set of materials and questions and the right context to embed a game within a situation and to make sure that what you work on with the game fits in the curricula. So I think
absolutely.
One of the major things we have to do for the next few years is just create context, create materials, and help teachers experience or learn how this can be applied within a classroom setting.
yes, and
Absolutely.
I see another comment also with the question from Gonzalo Parilla Galego. It's how yes, I consider quite theoretical approach to gaming, but just as Gitis is asking, how should institutions be involved? I guess it's also more important to convince institutions and main principals to get involved with this topic. So the problem of not only teachers, but convincing the managers of the institutions to pay attention to this and to invest into this topic in how to.
Yeah, well, it's different from country to country, but in Denmark, at least for the moment, the government and so on are very focused on that we need to teach children and adults to program, have the computational thinking skills, and be innovative, and all these buzzwords. But they're not just buzzwords; they're also put into the curriculum. So actually, we can pinpoint somewhere in the curriculum that will support that this might be an opportunity to use games, for example, or game design. So I think, but as Thomas was saying, the institution also needs someone to point it out or present it in an eatable way. So they can see how will this help my teachers to get better results with the students, for example.
Okay.
But a lot of these things can be done free, and this is also a good factor when you need to convince an institution to do this, because game design, you have a lot of free programs there, and you can also make a game in PowerPoint if you want. So it doesn't have to cost much.
Okay, thanks a lot, and it's really a great presentation, great thoughts. And now I would like to give the floor to our next speaker, who is already joined in the discussion, Thomas Kunze from BFI Vienna, Austria. So beyond learning and serious games. Thomas, floor is yours. I stop sharing of the slides, share your screen, and go on with your presentation.
Okay, I will try. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we see your screen.
Perfect. Okay. So as I'm sharing my screen, I cannot see the rest of the chat and me on camera. Maybe this is helpful, but I will start with the short introduction of myself. My name is Thomas Kunze. and I work with BFI, but I am also the founder of an institution that is called Games Institute Austria, and we focus on exactly the things we were talking about before within the question, that we find ways to use games within new contexts, and that is especially learning and communication. And I would like to show you in the next 15 minutes how this could be done, especially when it comes to skills that enter the curricula that are sort of new to a school setting and are more complex or bigger than just learning about sheer facts like we have done before within school settings and schooling situations. Okay, so my topic is going to be beyond learning and serious games. Teaching serious topics, or rather competencies for the next century with commercial games. Okay, when I'm talking about commercial games, I am talking about commercial off-the-shelf or COTS games, which actually means that we are not talking about games designed specifically for learning, but games that are used or that were produced to work within the gaming market. So they work on their own and they are not designed for learning purposes, but they have a great potential for that, especially when it comes to new skill sets that we need to learn. So I would like to start with a similar question like the one Anne presented at the beginning of her presentation, and that is, what are video games? And there is an answer to that that sounds really simple. It is a quotation from James Paul Gee, linguist and discourse analyst working in the US, who has published a lot about using games within classrooms. And a good part of my presentation is sort of quoting him. He says, a video game is just a set of problems. So that means that if you play any game, you have to learn the game to understand how to solve the problem. For example, if you have a look at Minecraft. Minecraft is a game that is probably known to almost everyone by now, and it is a media phenomenon unlike any other. It is published practically on all platforms, and its success shows the real potential of video games or commercial off-the-shelf games. If you have ever played or seen something about Minecraft, you probably know this bit. It's a very basic building block. It's there right at the beginning of the game, and that is actually what you mine most of the time, and it appears to be really simple. But if you have a look at what people are able to do, you stumble across stuff like this, for example. This is the city of Vienna, built in Minecraft, and you can see how good the city is represented here. So if you use Minecraft, you can build places or cities or things of a high grade of complexity. You are even able to build stuff like this. So if we have a closer look at what Minecraft is, you can find the following facts. Minecraft sold almost 150 million copies. There are many, many active users. It is available on all possible platforms, up to e-readers like the Amazon Kindle Fire, and Minecraft is really big business. Mojang, the company that created Minecraft in 2009, was acquired by Microsoft in, I think, 2014 for 4.5 billion US dollars. And since then, the game has grown all the time. Microsoft released Minecraft Education Edition that is used worldwide and is used in all subjects. I'd say there's actually not much you can not do with Minecraft. The game is even used within a relatively big project that is called Block by Block, and it's a cooperation between Mojang and UN Habitat. And the goal of the project is to create cities, or rather parts of cities, to imagine what the city could look like in the future. And the good and new thing about it is that players, or rather the inhabitants of the cities, are able to create and design their vision of their city within Minecraft, to start a discussion with architects and city developers. So Minecraft is a perfect tool for 3D sketching and used worldwide. But there are more games that can be used in the same way. Here in the background, I actually used a screenshot from the game Offworld Trading Company, a game I will come back to later, but before I will have a look at some other games. So you can say that games are actually more complex than anything you would learn at school, which is a good thing. It is not something you should be scared of. It is a great opportunity. For example, if you have a look at a game like Factorio, you can see it here. This is also a screenshot of the game. You can see that there is a lot of complexity. This is played and created by players of the game. So this is a thing you learn while playing Factorio. The game description of the game creator says, use your imagination to design your factory. Combine simple elements into ingenious structures and apply management skills to keep it working. And that's actually what you do. You start off with a very, very simple set of things you can do, and you grow your factory step by step. So what does it teach? If you play a game like Factorio, you have to learn about systems thinking, about effectivization and project management. If you have a look at other rather complex games, for example, like Civilization, you learn about a different set of skills, which also can tell us a lot about the person playing it, because we are going to be able to create a learning that is so immersive, so deep, and so rich in information about the development of the people within that learning space. So if you have a look at how people play a complex game, you can really find out a lot about their skill set, their approach to problems, their ability of cooperation, communication, and their approach to creativity. So if you play a game like Civilization, which is, it looks sort of like a board game, but it's a simulation or a very ritualized simulation of historical concepts and historical development. So if you play the game, and it is really not that easy, you learn about researching people, researching structures, researching information about almost anything. You learn to plan. You learn to understand complexity, and you actually learn a lot about diplomacy and how it works. So if we have a look at the game, this is an in-game screen, and you can say there's loads and loads of information. I just pointed out a few here, but I won't go too deep because this could take hours. For example, you see cities here, you see resources, different terrain types, units within the field. You have a lot of statistics telling you about almost everything, and you also have relationships of people to the government, or the government to other rulers, and so on. So it is presenting a really complex system to play with. And now I'm approaching the last game on my list, which is called Off-World Trading Company. You can see the screenshot here. And Off-World Trading Company is actually a game that can be played in multiplayer. So you play it in a competitive way, but it is not really about shooting or killing other players. It is a problem set within a financial market. So you are competing with others to be the best on an economic level, and you learn a lot about stock markets and supply and demand and so on. So to have a closer look at the game, it looks something like this. If you are in multiplayer, here you can see the different bases. Here is one, and there's another one. And you also see a lot of information about what the financial and stock market situation looks like. For example, here you have all the goods that can be traded. You have your rate of supply, you have your quantity, and you also have prices of these goods at the moment. So if you play a game like this, you play within a clear situation. So your learning is situated and it is embodied. So what you learn within the game makes sense within that game setting, and as you can see here, it also can be translated or applied for a real world similar setting. There are games that can be used as tools for problem solving in specific contexts. So I'd say that the use of commercial games makes sense for a setting like the one we are working on when it comes to vocational training. So I put a chart here that is presented by the World Economic Forum, and it presents the top 10 skills you need to thrive in the fourth industrial revolution. And there are actually all the skills I was talking about before. And there are also quite a big number of games you can use to work on these skill sets. For example, there are games like, I need to check here, sorry, I hope you are still with me. Wait a second.
Yes, we are still with you.
Yes, okay. I will go back to the presentation because the item was jumping here, this Adobe Connect.
Yeah,
okay.
It was question coming on the chat, that's why he indicated that. Okay. Continue.
Yes, I will be finished in about a minute, and then I'm ready for some questions. Okay, so the games to use for the skills we have on the left could be games, for example, like Blockhood, which is a neighborhood builder that lets the players learn about what is important for growing a neighborhood, for a good and sound and environmentally sound neighborhoods. A game like Brothers is a game about learning how to work with people and how we are dependent on others. So it teaches us about a social set of skills. That is my timer. Wait a second. Okay. There is Cities Skylines, a city simulation game. There is Don't Starve Together, a game about survival and about cooperation. There is Kerbal Space Program, a game about managing a space program, and so on. There are many, many more, and I think they make real sense to use within a classroom setting. So that's it from my side. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you found it useful.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, I will
yes.
try to go back to Adobe Connect.
I think you go to the Adobe Connect. Okay.
Stop sharing.
Okay. Now you.
Okay.
Yeah. Very interesting. And first question pops up into my mind is we had similar situation. We use games and especially the Minecraft in our extracurriculum school with the children to learn the programming in a playful way, to organize. And the main problem was the complaints from the parents that children hook up on this game and they cannot stop when coming home. They are all constantly involved, and it's very good excuse because, you know, I'm learning, don't bother me. And parents are somehow worrying about the screen time. And one of the skills I think we will need in 2020, 2030 is how to cope with this screen time limitation, screen time syndrome, because, you know, in games it's very easy to become overstimulated, and to how to control this and to use the games only in a meaningful way and not to overstimulate our kids and players.
Well, this is a difficult thing to answer. Actually, it is a question of parenthood, and it is not so much about the games. Yesterday, I saw two kids crossing the street, and one was immersed in his iPhone and was playing a game, I guess, while crossing the street. And there was his friend, and he was crossing the street too, being immersed in a book, you know? And both habits are dangerous. They could have been run over, you know? But if you see the kid with the smartphone in his hand, you think, oh my, this is problematic behavior. But if you see the kid with the book doing the same thing, it doesn't look so bad. So I'd say that you have to cope with screen time anyway, because kids are playing anyway. If you have a look at Minecraft and 147 million copies sold, the game is out there anyway, you know. If you you are struggling with screen time because your kid is playing too much, it is a question you have to solve anyway. The best thing is to play along with your kid and to have a a proper discussion about it, which is not just about saying yes or no, but get involved. Have a talk with your kids about what they're doing there. If they were watching a movie or reading a book, this would be the best advice too. So I'd say it is all about being a good parent, and I know that it's hard work and that you do not have the energy or time to get involved all of the time. But if you are worried about screen time, another approach is make sure that they access screens where you can see them. So do not let them have a computer or a TV set or a console or something in their room so they can lock doors, so to say. It is a question of how you yourself deal with it. And if you get involved, you can see that actually if you are playing a game, it's never a dumb thing to do. So if you are playing a game, you are learning always. And most of the time, it is also a really social thing to do because they are mostly playing with others.
Excellent answer. Thanks a lot. And let's go to some more questions from the chat. Fleming is asking how expensive those games you have presented.
Well, it depends on the platform and it depends on when you buy it. The games I presented are actually all on PC, so you can buy most of them via the typical platforms like Steam or Humble Store or Good Old Games, and they vary. The games I presented are all not new, about a year old or older, and they also work on computers that are not recent. So I'd say when it comes to the hardware side of things, you can use them with regular laptops and computers. So if you have a setting that has these already, the games actually work probably. And when it comes to buying the games, for example, a game like Factorio is about €20 per game. But there are possibilities to buy the game in a bundle, and there's about 2 or 3 times a year there are sales, and you can buy a game like, I don't know, Minecraft or Civilization for about 10 to 15 euro. The Civilization game I showed is Civilization 6, which is the newest one, which is actually still a full price game, I think about 50 or 60 euro, but sometimes reduced too. But if you go for an older version like Civilization 4 or Civilization 5, then you can get it well below €10 a game. So it is about the price of a book.
Okay, thanks for the answer. And Audris is asking how steep is a learning curve for the Minecraft? How long does it take for it to be useful?
Well, it depends on how you use it. If you use the game to explore and to play it in the regular, I don't know what's it called, survival mode or the regular game mode, then you can start using it within a classroom setting right from the beginning. I would actually really recommend starting right at the beginning of a game if you are new to it, which is not that often the case with Minecraft, but with other games. If you are going into something that is more complex, like doing programming or building machines using Redstone, then you need a few hours, I'd say, to be able to create the stuff within Minecraft that you are aiming for. But if you are going for Minecraft Education Edition, for example, this is also very community oriented, and there's a guide and a video and material for almost everything, and you there are quite a lot of teachers who are willing and love to help getting
okay,
there.
thanks a lot, Thomas. We are running out of time a bit, so let's continue with other presentations, and I'd like to give a floor to Jean-Marc Turon, who will also have a short presentation from example of low-cost games from our partner project.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yes. Hello again.
Just a moment. I will open. Okay. So you have opened your slides, or?
And please, Gitis, if you can open my presentation.
Yes, just a moment. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, my name is Jean-Marc, and I teach physics at IOC. Gitis asked me to talk about how we use gamification in our IOC classrooms. The truth is that there are no strict rules to be followed by IOC teachers when it comes to gamification, but I will explain a few concepts I believe to be important. The first concept is play for fun. Obviously, everyone likes to win, even more so when it comes to playing games. However, if the pressure to win is too much, the fun can be taken out of it, and it ceases to be a game. For this reason, I prefer to gamify the learning activities over the assessed activities. This way, the students are able to enjoy the game and have the sense of playing rather than worrying about whether they pass or fail. The second concept I want to talk about is the ability to make choices. I personally prefer games in which there are many ways to reach the final goal over those which require a set sequence of tasks to be completed. This way, my students can choose and make mistakes between different options, which I believe encourages a more divergent way of thinking while playing. For example, a question such as, how much is 2 plus 2? Could be asked in a broader way, such as, tell me several ways to make a sum of 4. The second option allowing more scope for creative thinking. Now, let's see an example of how to implement this concept in a game. Hello, my name is Bond, and I'm a private investigator. I have a license to spy. It's not a real license, but it will do. Do you want to join me on one of my adventures? Now, depends on what you choose, the character will do one thing or another. Today is a day like any other.
Game over.
I'm sorry, Gitis. Please, can you share my presentation again? I'm not able to find it. Thank you. In order to create this game, I used a free of charge tool called H5P. This tool allows users to add multiple choice and fill in the blank questions, and also pop-up text and other types of interactions to their videos, using only a web browser. The third concept is that the learning objectives must be easily measurable. We always said education before the game and not the other way around. In order for gamification to be successful, is it important to have in mind throughout the design process how we will evaluate whether or not the student has accomplished the learning objectives. Finally, as Anne Ishol said, it's very important, the level of the players. During the design process, we must always bear in mind the profile of the players. If, for example, we make a very fun game, but too challenging for students to progress to the next level, the game loses its appeal. Keep in mind that the students are of different abilities, and while some might find it easy, others may be frustrated. If we design games that allow students to get to the end through many different paths, we will reach many more students. And well, thanks for listening. That's all from me. I don't know if you have any questions, and I'll hand you back to Gitis.
Thank you, John, for a really quick overview and very focused presentation. Nice example.
You're welcome.
Do we have any questions? I see Fleming has posted the link to H5P. For those who are not familiar, it's really very easy to use and free of charge open source tool. You can embed created interactive objects to any website. And also for the Moodle platform, which is used quite widely, there is a plugin you can install and use natively inside the Moodle. So thanks a lot. Fleming is asking, where can we try your spy game? I think it's with your students, not open yet.
Okay, I'll share the link right now in this chat, but I have to find first. And I don't know if in the guidebook, the link it will appear, I guess.
Yeah, Gonzalo Parilla Gallagher asking about the theory you were referencing, whether when this theory was proposed, he even imagining that it could be applied to the gamification in school environment. So I have difficulty to pronounce this name, but
yes. And what theory do you mean?
I think it was in this quadrant of flow, flow channel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, about anxiety. Yes. I think it's a very good theory, and it can apply in games and in education and another moment in your life. No, it's too hard. You quit very quick.
Okay, so thanks a lot. Let's proceed to our other speaker. And
okay, thank you, Gitis.
Yeah, and I'd like to introduce Rasmus Christiansen. Please, Rasmus, the floor is yours. Should I share your? Will you be sharing screen? Yes, we have your slides here.
Thank you, Gitis. I hope the sound and image is okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so I will talk a bit about what we have done at VUC Storstrøm, and some of it will be in relation to what Anne Isold said earlier about how to use games in a school environment. So this is some concrete examples of how have we tried to use games at VUC Storstrøm. First up, we tried to, this is an example from one of our classes, and this is a gamified classroom where we tried to convert the classroom into a game in itself. That meant that we put the different students in teams, so it's a team-based structure, and they had to create their own game based on some learning objectives that the teachers have told them. By the way, I'm a Danish and history teacher at VUC Storstrøm, and this was in relation to a history project about the American Civil War. So they got points by the progress they made in the creation of the game. That was some of the points they could achieve. And that was, they got points when they came up with an idea. They had some additional points when they created a scenario, and they had additional points when they could explain how to achieve points in the game by learning the curriculum. But you could also receive points by letting other teams play your game. So we try to have a feedback, feed forward built into the gamified classroom. So you received points by letting others play your game and receiving feedback you could use to create a better game. But you could also receive points for giving others feedback and ideas to how to make their game better. So this gamified classroom is one way to try to use some of the elements of gamified learning, and in relation to Anne's presentation earlier, this is a gamified learning environment. But of course, they also try to create a game. So they're also learning by creating games. So they're learning designers in essence, or they learn how to create a game design. And as we talked about, this is a way to achieve some computational thinking. So how to have relatively complex issues addressed so it will be possible to understand it and to learn about it and to learn others about it through a game. So this is a relatively complex issue that will be attainable for most students if and when they try it in this gaming setting. And this is where games really come into play, so to speak, I think, because this is one of the main strengths of using or having the students create games in your classroom, that they can tackle some really complex issues, and they know how to do it. They are very capable. Just to be clear, our institution is an adult education, so this is for some of our students have had issues with other ways of going to school and have social issues, but still this is one of our most successful elements in trying to keep students in class. Just to give for instance, these 3 students were actually all, how do you put it mildly, not very good at coming to school. But when we tried this experiment for 3 weeks, they were there every time, and they created, as you can see, it's a very creative way of teaching and experiencing going to class, and they showed up every time in every class, and that was the only time they did that. So yes, we also talk a lot about also in relation to Anne's triangle of learning, that when you produce stuff you get better. This is a better way of learning, and this is a very active producing way of learning things. So that's another element of using games in your classroom. So we had a classroom that was changed to a gamified environment. We had teams creating games for each other where you had to learn things, some serious games. So this is some of the things we tried out at Virtus Storstrøm with great success, I might add. And it was both analog and digital. We tried to bring some of these elements into a gamified learning management system, maybe both to simplify it for the students and for the teachers, so this could be used anywhere. So this is our global academy, which is a team-based gamified LMS system. You first off, you can have your teachers structuring your learning as normal, but it will include different kinds of games, and you play these games both in teams as well as individually. And some of the points you receive as a team is given by the teacher, and some of them is given by the points you achieve by playing some mini games. As I talked about, this is a team-based structure, and we found that when in a team, we often have there's more likelihood of us showing up and doing what we're supposed to because we're responsible and accountable to others. And hopefully this will keep students motivated and in class. So we learn through or together with others much better than on our own. So you have your team-based structure where you get points for from assignments you do in class, but you can also do individual mini games, and you can do them anywhere at any time on any device. And the more points you make for your team, and the more games you play, the more points you make for your team, but you can also challenge the rest of your team to achieve more points. So this is to try to motivate students to keep on trying the game. As Anne also said in the beginning, we can fail up to 80% of the time, and yet we still keep playing those games. So this is integrated into the learning management system, these points system and this team-based points system. In addition to this, we would also like to have the students as producers. So you can actually, I don't know if you can see where I'm pointing, but at the top where it says Team 5 or choose TA, this is a teacher assistant mode where you can have your students become the teacher. So they have to create the content, they have to plan the learning, they have to make the mini games. And to do this, again, you need to have an understanding on what is learning. What do you need to learn to master a subject? How is it achievable? And all this leads to a sort of meta-learning experience that you need to learn how to learn. And you need to understand how people learn. So, and if you do that, you can also be better at learning yourself. So, yes, I think that was about it. This is just some of the examples on how we have tried to implement or introducing games in different scenarios at VUC Storstrøm. Yes.
Thank you, Rasmus. I have one question. How many teachers are involved in using this gamified learning in your institution?
It depends on which parts of it, because when we gamified the classroom, we tried this a couple of times with each time there's been a couple of teachers, and Anne has been involved as well. So it is a bit different, and so that's more of a larger team-based structure where you create a larger gamified environment. But the learning management system is actually something you can do on your own in a classroom with your class, and actually have your class be the teachers for each other. So that's different kinds of levels of involvement from the teachers. But I think earlier someone talked about how do we get teachers to try using games in classrooms, and I think one of the main points is that we have to change the role of the teacher from someone who is giving knowledge to the students. We have to move focus on how do we get the students active in creating their own learning. So the teacher will have to be a facilitator, and I think games is one of the ways we can achieve this. Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. I think you are right. We need to involve more students into creating their own learning, and don't be just the teachers in front of the classroom.
No.
And okay, let's move to another presenter, and we have Tuli Oksanen. Tuli, can you switch on your video and microphone?
Okay, you can hear me?
Yes,
okay,
we can hear you. Okay, we see your screen. Go ahead.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Tuuli Oksanen. I'm a development coordinator at TAC, Tampere Adult Education Center in Finland. I want to introduce our game, which is a QR code track. This is a game we've originally developed for developing our own personnel's digital competence. It's a game that is based on experimentation. It's a team-based, shared developing model. The idea of this game was to lower the threshold of trying out new digital tools and methods. It is, as I said, team-based, and the model can be modified and adjusted according to the situation and according to the need. But this is what we've tried with our own staff and with our networks. So the QR code track, the idea is that you have a certain amount of checkpoints in the track, and the teams go around the track and visit the checkpoints. So the rules of the game, you can have, for example, from 3 to 5 different function points or mini workshops, whatever you want to call them. Each function point has its own theme and a task. And also you have 3 to 5 teams, so as many teams as many function points. And each team visits each function points according to a pre-designed schedule, and they spend about 15 to 20 minutes at one function point. The time they spend at a specific function point depends on how long you have time to play the game. The idea of the game is that when a team arrives at a function point, they find a QR code, they open up the QR code, and they find their first task. The task can be anything. Usually it is something that it's a problem that the team needs to solve together. They need to complete the task within that given time and complete it as well as they can. Or alternatively, instead of a task that they solve at that checkpoint, the QR code can open up a problem where the correct answer leads the team to the next function point. And the tasks can be anything you think of. So creativity, and the game we've played in TAC has been focusing on digital tools and methods. So all the tasks have been related to digital tools. The tasks we've used are, for example, that the team has to download WhatsApp on their mobile phones and send a message to the facilitator. The team could be asked to start an online meeting with Skype, for example, and ask the facilitator to join the meeting. One task has been to watch a video using the VR classes and then answer questions related to the video. Or it could be a task where the participants are asked to make their own video, for example, using the green screen technique. So whatever the theme is in your game, you design the tasks related to the theme. You can play the game in one large space, but we prefer that the game is played so that each function point is in a different space. Teams circulate the checkpoints, and then if you want to add a little excitement, you can have prizes for the team that does the best time or has the best answers. Or you can have a variation of the game where you have the game is presented as a map, and everyone, the teams use the map to find the QR codes. So you can have very many variations of the game depending on the time available, the subject, and so on. We've had really good feedback from this game from our teachers. They said that the game-based way of learning about new digital tools has been really fun, and it has lowered the threshold for them to then try out these tools and methods later on themselves. It's pretty much the idea, and we are happy to give more information about our experimentations.
Thank you, Tuuli. The first question came to my mind is, can you share shortly how the support system is organized in your institution to help teachers to develop this kind of multimedia, especially if it's related to virtual reality? I can imagine it's quite expensive and requires some skills. So do you have a separate department who takes care of this support, or how it's done?
Well, we do have an IT department that supports us, the teachers, but we do a lot of experimentations in different projects. So the projects are a very good way of experimenting, and then based on the results of the experiments, we choose the ones that we can actually continue after the project. And we encourage our teachers to share and develop together. So we always find someone, for example, now we have a few people who have learned a lot about the VR classes and their use, and they share their knowledge with the other teachers. So the working together and sharing the experimentations is really effective. And of course, yeah, the VR classes are really expensive, but we're hoping that the prices go down and we can utilize them more later on.
Yes, they are both expensive. The glasses itself and also expensive to produce the multimedia for those glasses. So it's at least in KTU, we really find it challenging to find especially when having the faculty of informatics with all the specialists who make even the research in augmented reality, in virtual reality, it's difficult to attract people to do these practical things to assist teachers in developing something useful for the learning process. So, but it's just from our experience. Okay, do we have any other questions to Tuuli? Maybe we move to other speakers because their time is running. We have two more speakers. Thanks, Tuuli. I'd like to present St. John Smith, who is from the private company. They are doing great tools for learning on the mobile devices. And John, go ahead and try. I will open your slides. And
thank you, Gittis. Can you hear me? Is it okay?
Yes, we
okay,
can hear you
super.
well.
Great. Thank you very much, Gittis, for the opportunity to join in this morning, and thank you also to all the previous speakers. It's been quite an interesting. For some reason, I've got the previous slides are appearing over mine. I don't know if that's happening for you as well, Gittis. Seems to have hit a slight technical solution here, and I can't see my own. I can't see my own slides.
Just a moment, I'll try to share it again. Do you see it now?
Yeah, but I've still got the previous slide over the middle of my slides. I don't know if everybody else can see the same. Where I've got the previous, Thule's previous, for more information, please contact. The bottom of her webpage is appearing for some reason over the top of my slide.
Okay, just try to change view, try another view from full layout to slide layout.
Okay.
I know you are connected from iPad, so it might be.
Okay, that's better now, I think. Okay, sorry about that. Well, good morning, everybody, and thanks very much again for your time. I bring the perspective of, as Git has mentioned, we're a private company. We work with educating organizations, with trainee organizations, with a really varied range of subjects that they train their own audiences on. So, and we work with Gittis's team at KTU, who do a lot of our development work in the cloud, the database-wise, and for services for our apps. But we tend to work with our clients who have a desire to use apps to reach their learning audiences and to empower their learners really to learn where and when they want. And so it's about distributed learning. So we embrace gamification because of its potential to engage learners to a much greater degree, as has been mentioned and covered by all of the previous speakers. It's about just the very simple fact that when learners need to just having a problem. When learners know that they're going to be tested on knowledge that they've been exposed to, and they know that they will be held somehow accountable for the learning, then they pay much closer attention. That's just a fact of life. So we embrace gamification because it has this potential to more highly engage our clients and partners, learners, through the platform that we provide for them. So I'm just going to whip through how we use these. It's nothing nearly as complex as some of the other projects we've heard about, but we try to bake this idea of gamification and competition, indeed, right into every aspect of the various options that we offer on our platform. So here's just one example. First of all, our platform allows the learners to effectively compete with themselves, and this is all about giving learners the opportunity to earn badges and to, as they work their way through a curriculum material. So you can see examples here from our apps, and if we start on the left, we have a typical tutorial, which will be a mixture of texts and video and images, and then the tutorial will end then with each tutorial will end with a number of multi-choice questions. The platform also offers the opportunity for free text questions as well, but this is just from a simple tutorials perspective. We have what happens is the learner will be asked a number of questions, and then they will be rewarded if they reach a certain threshold of correct answers. They'll be rewarded a badge, and then each student then has their own individual badge backpack where they're able to view what the tutorials that they've earned accreditation through, and so this works well when institutions we work with, like the British Film Institute or like Raindance Film School, have large curriculums that they want to share with students to learn on their own time, because they can unleash the students on this. But then of course, the students and the educator themselves, can completely track students' progress through the materials, and it gives them all an ability to look group-wide and to see, which students are racing ahead, which students are lagging behind, and the overall progress on an individual basis of acquiring the learning. And the benefit as well is that a lot of the learning can be done outside the classroom when the students are on their own, and then the classroom time can be used for group work. And as has been mentioned as well in some of the previous presentations, when the learning really goes in when the students or when the learners have to actually create themselves. So using this blended learning approach, where the students are empowered to learn and take the knowledge from the curriculum in their own at their own pace and wherever they want, but then to bring that knowledge back into the group, to be able to apply that knowledge in group activities and learning we find is super successful with some of the people, with some of the clients we work with. So that's competing with yourselves. Competing with others is again within the groups. Here we have a couple of screenshots where the educators have views on how well their classes and how well their groups are working through the materials. And we see here at the bottom how, it's a relatively, these are sort of test groups, but we see that for this particular group, out of the 7 learners in the group, 100% has been completed. So we can track and we can see how within the group the learners are working their ways through the curriculums and are able to bring that back into the group. And then finally, there's sort of more open competition. This allows us to move beyond a little bit this idea of everything being rules based, and it's more about exploration. So here the platform allows students who have created films for their courses to then post the films onto the platform, where their films can be rated with 1 to 5 stars by the other members of the groups, and also they can be commented on by other members of the groups. So there's something in here about the competition where the students know that their work is going to be assessed and compared with their contemporaries, and therefore and they know they're going to be accountable for their work, and they know that they're going to get feedback through the platform, either in star ratings or in comments for their work. So so there is competition then within the group. So the platform then allows a leaderboard and group type of abilities for the groups themselves to assess each other and to give each other feedback. So there's open competition then within the group. So these are just some simple ways that within our platform we've really baked in how the students and the learners are continually being tracked in at least in the privacy protected, the safest privacy protected most ways, but clearly the platforms track users' activities and everything that they do. So we can learn a lot more about learners' behaviors and how they respond, and how certain learners respond better to challenges and gamification style approaches to learning. It's not for everybody, but then it allows the educator to at least see and to address the students who are less engaged. I wanted to include this next slide. Now, for gamification, for me, there really is the gold standard, and the one that our platform, Quick Class, is probably most inspired by is maybe one of the simplest platforms. I'm not sure if anybody else in the audience uses something like Duolingo for language learning. I'm currently learning Dutch, and so I just find that just competing against myself in the sense that I'm able to access learning materials daily, and not only am I able to access learning materials daily, but I'm encouraged to learn every day and to maintain a daily streak. That is the number of days in a row that I've actually successfully completed a number of exercises. So here, the game is actually to stay in the game. The game is to continue to learn daily and not to lose my streak. And by doing so, of course, my Dutch improves, but also I get a sense of achievement in the sense that I'm actually working my way through it. Whether or not my spoken Dutch is getting any better, that's really debatable. But certainly my vocabulary and my understanding of the grammar of the language is improving every day, simply because there's this daily challenge for me to engage with the language and to engage with the learning. And this is the type of setup and the type of approach that we encourage our partners, our education partners, to take as well. How can you engage your students to make a habit out of learning by turning it into a game? And that's very much, the question. So our gamification plans, then, I'd just go very, very briefly, because I know we're also low on time. We're taking like these basic tools that we have to track how well students are earning their accreditation, how well that they're progressing within a group amongst themselves, and also how well that how they can assess each other's work and give feedback to each other and effectively compete in a friendly way within the group. The idea next is to empower the educators to actually start to set quite sophisticated learning objectives for their groups. So the idea is that rather than leaving the students to decide when they're going to learn, but to actually give members of their learning groups, real goals and challenges. How many tutorials would you like your learners to complete per day? How many, or over a certain amount of time? How many projects need to be completed? And it's about being able to track that in real time and see what the response is, and to be able to really monitor how well the classes and how well learners are doing against a number of set objectives that the educator can set for their groups. So that's really where our plans are heading. Whether or not we're ever going to be as sophisticated as including things to do with Minecraft or augmented reality, that's a totally different question. But certainly the responses that we get from our partners and our clients about the gamification features is something that educators generally are very excited about, in the sense that it really gives a certain accountability, and it sets this challenge for the learners to be able to engage with in a much better way than just being given a PDF handout and told to read something. It's a whole different level of engagement that we're able to offer the students by introducing a little bit of competition. And that's really all I'd like to share this morning, but I guess I'd love to answer some questions if there are any, and then there are my contact details as well if anybody wants to get in touch after today. So thanks very much, everybody, for your time. Probably back to you.
Thank you, Sant. Few quick questions. Can students share or see other students' badges to bring a little motivation via competition into learning?
Teachers are able to share overall badge numbers in the classroom, but so far we don't give students the ability to look and see what their peers, what badges their peers have earned. It's a good idea though, and certainly if it's something we can present to teachers and just see how useful that would be. I guess most learners are probably quite blinkered in their own progress. It's interesting for them to see maybe where they sit on a leaderboard or where they sit in a ranking, but to actually get down to the detail of seeing which badges other students have earned, it's probably too much detail.
So another question is, isn't it a bit contradictory? Meaning using competition to improve students' progression, meanwhile scholars are defending the important thing is to improve personally and try to get over oneself difficulties rather than constantly being compared to anyone else. you know, it's especially with the youngsters.
Well, I mean,
in the schools, they are really trying to get a bit from competition. But as far as I understand, your application is more for the companies to build training inside, or for the students in the higher education schools. So it's maybe not so sensitive.
Yeah, I guess, you know, competition is a fact of life. So I don't know if it's, you know, I think that from a young age, learners, you know, appreciate that, you know, I think it's really important actually as well. I don't know if it's a contradiction to encourage individuals to learn and to use, you know, a competitive to use competitive tools to engage learners more in you know, in the process of learning and in the materials that they are being asked to look at and to take in. I mean, it sort of gets down to the philosophy. Well, should there be competition at all in education? And I think it's more about using a sense that there is something at stake for the learner, that they have potentially, there's something at stake to lose. And I guess the underlying thing is that, well, what they have to lose is to miss the opportunity to learn and miss the opportunity to have whatever knowledge the course is giving them, you know, to take that forward in life. And so, it's covered. It's this underlying threat of losing an opportunity to learn is, I guess, masked by giving the learner a sense that they're not losing for themselves and their future potential, but they are losing against maybe their peers, or losing against, or in a team of learners, they're letting their teammates down.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Whether or not. Yeah. I mean, it's a good question, and it really gets into the philosophy of it. We could probably spend another hour talking about that, so we're not going to do that. But I appreciate the question, and it's good to bring it up about the effectiveness ultimately of
I would also recommend you to check the chat and also to contact Thomas Kunze, because he is asking some specifics about the system, and probably he could help you also with some ideas and some. Okay, so.
It's interesting, actually, the about the fixed content system. I mean, it's not fixed content at all. It's really our partners. They publish themselves, and they publish, you know, a really incredibly wide variety of materials on the platform. So, just to answer that. Anyway, good to end, everybody. Thank you very much for your time.
And we are out of time, but I would like also to give a few more minutes for our last speaker, Audrius Martinkus, who is also from the company that is developing educational videos for in-service training to other companies. So, Audrius, can you try to, just a moment, I need to promote you to the presenters, and please try to share your screen and activate your camera and microphone.
Can you hear me?
A bit. Could you talk a bit louder or closer to the microphone? Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
You hear me?
Yes.
Can you see my screen?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll have a short presentation. Thank you for inviting in this webinar, and I hope that this presentation will give you some value. And if you have any questions, please ask. So I wanted to present one small tool that is created from our partners in Latvia. They created a tool to help to create easily interactive scenarios, and I'll show you how it works. So the address is branch track. If you're eager to try, you can try it. But when you are in a need to create various scenarios, it's easy made tool for you to use. So like this is the interface where you can create different classes. and not the classes, but the like trainings. And then the tool looks really, really simple, drag and drop principles, where you create the scenario where the person is starting, and then what are the branches and what are other results, and they can be from huge ones to the smaller ones. And I'll show you how it's working in the screen. So it can be used easily also in the mobile devices on the screen. Why this tool we use a lot? Because it can be easily exported as a SCORM and put it as an iframe to some other trainings which we are creating with Articulate. So here, sorry for the language, it's in Lithuania, but I hope you get the point. So this is a conversation. It starts. It asks me the question. I choose an option. It reacts to my response. If I choose wisely, it becomes happy. Then, depending on where I'm going, I'm interacting with different situations. Okay, I made a bad choice. I need to repeat it. And this tool can be used in pre-made pictures you can take from the library, but also you can use a video inside, and we created a small presentation how it can look when the video is attached to it. So this is a short, just a demo scenario, and the question says, like, you were watching soap operas the whole night. What are you going to be doing? You'll make a coffee, or you'll talk with the boss about the issue. And okay, let's better talk with the boss. Okay, that's option me. Okay, so it looks the boss is not too angry, and what I'm gonna do? So the first answer is, okay, I'll sit and work, or okay, I'll go to eat the sandwich. And if I see that the boss is not too angry, I'll go to eat the sandwich. And then that point are getting down. So this is just a short presentation how it could be used. And now I'll show you how it can be implemented in the trainings. This is one of our lessons of this not discrimination training. And show you this is like the content presented by the lecturer. Some information is presented with the animation, and where we are in the need of a task. I'll show you. Okay, this is not that one. Okay, so this is a task, and it easily jumps to the branch track, and I can play around with the situation here. So, and you can do also a collaboration, like in previous presentation, someone said that the classroom is supposed to be included in also creating those scenarios. So what branch track gives, it gives a foreign tool in which a couple of users, more users can join and create these branching scenarios. So I think that would be it, the short presentation. Hope you didn't know about that, and now you know. If you have any questions, please ask.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Audrus. One question is how expensive it is. I don't remember if there is a pricing on the site or.
Okay, it depends on the usage. Like the company is really looking forward and partnering with the universities. So I think if you contact like the creators, they are willing also to be part of projects. But if you are using it in a commercial use, it depends on the usage. So the price varies.
Okay, and this is only for the building. So students are not involved into this branch track environment. You just exporting as a SCORM object and then putting it inside other learning material or environments, LMS.
Not only, like just previously, a couple of months ago, they introduced the branch track classes. So this is also a tool where you could put different tasks and create a learning plan and then distribute that through this also environment, like inside. So they also thought that if you would like to create a lot of scenarios and you don't need to put them somewhere else, you can create a class and run the training inside the, like for example, these are like a couple of simulations added to the class. And also they have all the other necessity tools, where are the learners, achievements, leaderboards, so small version of benefits that all LMSs have.
Okay, clear enough. I see we don't have other questions and we are running over our planned time. So sorry about this. It's also my fault being moderator and not keeping the time, but all presentations were quite very interesting and I didn't want it to also shorten the time for the discussions and questions after the presentation. But in this way, I think we can skip the discussion at the end of the webinar, because we had these discussions during the presentations and that was quite productive. I would like to ask everyone who participated to fill in the form about how you evaluate this webinar and your give your feedback. And once again, I would like to invite everybody to join our Visa community and also keep the track on our website and handbooks that we are developing and will be publishing very soon. So thanks everybody. If anyone would like to join and to say some words, now it's open for anyone to comment. So we were planned some breakout rooms and dividing in the small groups, but we don't have time for that. So we skip that part and finish our webinar. Another question I got in personal message regarding the recording of webinar. Yes, we have made recording of webinar, and if all the speakers will agree, we will publish this recording also inside our Visa Video Systems in Education website. So thanks everybody and goodbye.